What's going on, everybody? C4 here. Welcome back to the channel. And today's video, we're going to be going over the big franchise update here in Madden 21 that will be dropping on the 12th of November. Hopefully, I'll have my new Xbox by then. Doesn't look like it. My God, Canada Post is dog shit. But what is good is that the new Eagles franchise that I'm trying to hype up a little bit here, I'm personally excited for our main channel franchise, will be dropping either the 12th or the 13th. Like, I'm excited to go in. There's so much bad about the Eagles that it makes me very intrigued to hop in and play as them and just see, like, can I make Fulham a beast? Can I make Jordan Mailata a beast? All these guys, my personal attach to the Eagles. I can't wait. And right now the plan is we're going to be starting current season. We'll be starting wherever the league is when I do start it. So we'll be pretty awful. We'll have that Bengals tie and everything and try to work with it and try to handle all the injuries. So I'm excited for that. But November 12th, we'll be getting the franchise updates. Let's go through it. Is it good? Is it bad? What are my feelings on it? Should you be excited? Should you be disappointed? Should you be underwhelmed? Should you be overwhelmed? Let's see. So what we do, the first little thing here they're talking about, we're getting the next batch, because we were talked up about 3 franchise mode patches. The next one's coming in mid-January. I will say right now, going through everything that's in this first big title update for franchise mode, the fact that we have to wait till January, it's just like one of those things, like maybe it's a little bit, it's too long. Like for what we're getting in these patches, it feels a little long. But I want to make the assumption that as we go through these new features that are coming in, some of them are features that were in games previously that were bugged. So I'm hoping the fact that it's taking them this long, they're doing a lot of quality control. They're making sure that these old features that may be returning into franchise mode are actually going to work correctly and not just be copy and paste from old features that we've had in games, and they're still going to run suboptimally in franchise mode. But the next one is coming out mid-January, and there's absolutely no way I'm waiting till mid-January to start. Like, that might be when, like, Pink Slip starts back up again, once we get that mid-January update. So let's go through it here, fellas. Let's see what we got. So we're starting with Dev Trait Regression Tuning. So back in the day, we'll go through this before I break it down. Back in the day, we'll say Madden 19, Madden 18, used to have Dev Trait Regression. And it was bad. And it was one of those things where you would have Larry Fitzgerald, Aaron Rodgers was a popular one. You'd have these guys that are, 35 plus, still playing like a top 10 player at their position, but just because they're old, Madden would have them go down dev trait. It would look really, really weird. Like, you'd have Larry Fitzgerald go off 1,200 yards, 13 touchdowns, superstar, and then the next offseason, he just automatically goes down to a star dev, and you're like, what? That shouldn't happen. That's not fair. That's not rewarding. And I kind of, at that point in time, was like, they should just get rid of it. Like, I would much rather have my players never lose dev trait than harshly lose a dev trait. So that's what we've been seeing now. In Madden 21, you'll load free agency, you'll see sometimes players that are well below a 75 overall with superstar abilities or superstar X Factor abilities. And I'd much rather see that and have that some sort of unrealistic type scenarios around the league than having good players regressing for no reason at all. So hopefully with this dev trait regression coming back into Madden, it's not just like they found a box of old features that were stripped from Madden franchise mode and just decided to duct tape them to Madden 21's franchise mode. I hope they actually went in and reworked it. So as we go through it here, they basically say that there's going to be a certain amount, a threshold of star, superstar, and superstar X Factor players at the end of every season. It's going to try to keep that balance. So when you got new superstars, new X Factors, new star dev players coming in and being awarded those abilities, you're going to have the same amount of players kind of lose their abilities to keep that balance in the league, which makes a lot of sense, right? But also, I feel like, when you look at this, eligible players will be regressed in priority order until the target is met. See, this is where I get a little bit like, this is absolutely got to be something I got in and test and we see how it really feels. But I feel like when you throw in things like targets, it has to meet a certain threshold in offseason. It feels like that might be taking priority over, say, an actual player's stats. Like, you could have enough players going up a dev trait. So then in the Madden algorithm, they have to find players to take away a dev trait. They could just be like, there's no one. So they'll just pull a good player that absolutely should not be losing a dev trait, but they'll lose their dev trait anyway because the Madden franchise mode is trying to keep that balance. So I don't really know how that's going to play out. I don't know how the priority order and all these targets are going to be implemented, but we're going to have to wait and see. And it just says, in some cases, there may be slightly more than target after regression if no players were found eligible. So I hope that these thresholds, I guess we can say, the thresholds need to be incredibly realistic and fair. But at the end of the day, the fact that I can turn it off, you can turn off dev trait regression in league settings, is huge. This is something that Madden kind of needs to go more in the direction of anytime there's a feature like this, you need to be able to just let people customize the league the way they want it. If they don't want it, they can turn it off. If they do want it, they can turn it on. The bad thing is that this is probably the biggest update to this Madden franchise mode in the patch, and it would suck that if it's broken and then most people just turn it off, it's just like, oh, well, that's great. We waited for something that's not working properly, and I just turned it off. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, and we'll definitely be able to find that out sooner than later on the channel with all the rebuilds and stuff and how quickly we burn through years, and we'll see if it's good or we'll see if it's bad. We've also tuned the criteria to receive a dev trait scenario for all positions to prevent an overabundance of high dev traits after multiple years, and making sure we're increasing the dev on players who truly deserve it. So hopefully this means that in one way, like this is huge. This is actually probably the biggest thing of the patch for me. Hopefully we have less of the outside linebackers just automatically going up dev traits. Hopefully we have more of interception leaders going up dev traits. Hopefully we have more tight ends going up dev traits. Hopefully we have a lot more normal devs going up to star devs justly. So it's going to be interesting to see. But that is probably my favorite part of this whole segment. There will also be 3 new quarterback breakout dev scenarios that can occur throughout your season. So that's good, because as of right now, there is 0 quarterback breakout dev scenarios. I would have loved to see them say there's also going to be offensive line dev trait scenarios, like when your team gets X amount of rushing yards in a given week, it could trigger something for a guard or a center or a tackle. If your tackle's pitching a shutout here, hasn't given up a sack in X amount of weeks, you'd have a tackle dev trait. I don't know why they're so reluctant to not give linemen dev traits. It's almost half of your starting offense is ineligible for a dev trait increase. I don't get it, but at least we're getting something for quarterbacks. You could also turn breakout dev scenarios on and off. I don't necessarily know why you would do that, but hey, more options the better. But when breakout scenarios are off, users will only progress their dev trait by end of season stat rankings and awards. This is something that Madden needs to come out and show us what stat rankings exactly or what awards will give you a dev trait or potentially give you a dev trait. Why is there this mystery? I want to know that. I want to know that if I'm in week 16 with my quarterback, that if I go off the next 2 weeks, I will be top 5 in passing yards and I will be eligible for a dev trait increase. Why does there need to be this mystery? They should come out and explain how you can go up dev trait by end of season stat rankings and awards. Moving on, we have playoff bracket. Sure, it's kind of window dressing, doesn't really add much, but it's one of those things, I guess, right? It's not negative. It looks a little bit better than just having to look at the menus to see what's going on for the playoffs. So, you're not going to get a pat in the back for this one, but it's something. It adds, I guess, a little bit to franchise mode. We have player card career stats. Now you get to see where the player actually played the careers. It used to be something that used to be in Madden. Not so much with Lamar and them, but you can see with like Mark Ingram. Now you can see that he played for New Orleans for X amount of years. Now he's playing for Baltimore. This used to be a feature in Madden that I liked. The immersion, it definitely helped out with the immersion a little bit. Definitely helped out once you were like multiple years into your franchise mode. But an issue is that the last time this was in Madden, it was really buggy. I don't necessarily think there was an issue with quarterbacks, but I remember running backs had weird stats. I remember sacks were constantly all over the place. Like you'd have sometimes in your algorithm, like it would look good, and then out of nowhere, he'd have one year where he had 400 sacks. Just weird bugs and weird glitches. And I feel like that's probably why this feature got stripped from the game, is that it wasn't working properly. There was kind of buggy, and they're like, let's just get rid of it. So hopefully it's fine-tuned, because it definitely helps with the immersion in franchise mode. This is a solid feature. Again, if you had player card career stats and we had dev trait regression tuning and stuff like that at the very beginning of Madden 21, they would have been positive things that we would have kind of said, hey, this was a good job, versus just what we did when Madden 21 launched and just crapped all over franchise mode, and deservedly so. We have X Factor customization. They brought over functionality that allows the player to alter the superstar and X Factor abilities on their player inside a core franchise mode, both as coach and owner. Commissioners will be able to edit the abilities on players that are controlled by other players in the CPU as well. Abilities will continue to follow slot and overall requirements per the archetype, so a player must reach the overall threshold for an ability in the specified archetype before they're able to apply it. All this functionality occurs directly on the player card by clicking any of the abilities. Again, nice to have in franchise mode. I don't know how much... it's one of those things. I don't want to just be like, I don't know how much I'm going to pat them on the back. They're probably not looking for a pat in the back, but when you're looking at these features, you're just like, a lot of these probably should have been already in the game. A lot of these aren't major improvements, but they help out the quality of life. So this is something that I do think is pretty good, especially if you are in a single-man fantasy league or whatever you want to call it, right? and you just want that complete control over the rest of the NFL. Like, this is kind of trending into more towards like that whole, like, they should add a commissioner mode or something like that to franchise mode, where you can oversee absolutely everything and tailor your league. So this is something nice to have in it. It's better than having to change a guy's position. Remember, you used to have to just swap their position if you want to try to get a re-roll of their X Factor. So again, positive. You get points for that. That is something nice to have in a franchise mode. Retirement improvements. There will now be things to do that take you directly into transaction screen, sorted to retired players. So really, they just added a button here to click that. Usually you could just go into this menu anyways and see it, but again, very small quality life. It's probably better to have it as like a widget on the main screen than having to go through multiple menus to be able to see all the retirements. So that, that's it. That's what we got into franchise mode. And there's some good things in there. Honestly, there's some good things in there. I will say that the fact that we had to wait this long to only get this might be a little bit underwhelming, but it's Madden 21, man. It's one of those things you got to kind of tamper your expectations just a little bit and understand that, like, there's only so much we're going to be able to get in Madden 21's franchise mode. So if I'm being honest, I think that it's a little underwhelming, but I also think we're getting some pretty solid features. So here we go. The one in mid-January, they're talking about personnel logic improvements, about, draft logic, I guess. And there's a lot of commissioner tools, draft tools. Play cooldown's interesting for me to apply that. I know there'll be like little challenges. I can only run X amount of slants. But if you're in like multi-man leagues, that actually sounds pretty damn cool. But for the most part, the one that's coming in mid-January is going to be for multi-man leagues. So that's not really going to affect me a whole lot. So what do you guys think about all these new features that will be coming on November 12th for Madden 21's franchise mode? Like, if I was giving it out of a 10, 6.5, 7 out of 10, somewhere in that range. Again, it's one of those things. I can't really say it's underwhelming because we knew what we were getting. They came out and said, these are what your features you're going to be able to get during Madden 21's life cycle. So I don't want to be too critical and be like, well, they didn't add Coach Carousel or anything like that. And I kind of want to view it as Madden 21's franchise is awful. It's the worst Madden probably of all time. So adding these things now so they can get legacied in and be an automatic feature at Madden 22's launch, that's kind of how I'm viewing it. Like, I want dev trait regression to be working ahead of Madden 22. I want the player career stats to be working and not glitched ahead of Madden 22. I want the X Factor customization to be working and implemented before Madden 22. So the fact that they're going to be able to get these things in the game, maybe they'll go through a couple patches to get it right, but the fact that it's going to be established now as a new feature in Madden 21, so that when Madden 22 comes out, it's going to be expected that these things are going to be in franchise mode, that's kind of a positive. So let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section below. We'll be back tomorrow with some sort of rebuild, and then on the 12th, kick off the Madden 21 Eagles franchise. So thank you guys for watching. Until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.